and welcome to Westford's reading of the Memorial Day Honor Roll, stretching as far back to the Revolutionary War. Our team today will read approximately 1,500 names, and we are thrilled to have you here with us to commemorate and to participate in this solemn ceremony. My name is Carol Bousquet. I'm an Air Force veteran. It has given me great pleasure to work with our team, a group of citizen volunteers this morning, together toward bringing this occasion to our community. I'm going to begin by reading our team's names. We have Jim Gazzo, Michael Green, Marie France, Ishan Bonsai, Elliot Coleman, Bill Canole, Kathleen Canole, Jim Gazzo, Scott Hazelton, Sarah Zandy, Glenn Secor, Isabel DiCenzo, Jim Walsh, and the former town veteran agent, Paul Murray. Thank you very much, folks, for participating this morning. We remember, starting with the Revolutionary War, Oliver Barrett, Caesar Basin, Oliver Bates, Josiah Brooks, Ephraim Cummings, Daniel Dudley, Jesse Dudley, Paul Fletcher, Raymond Fletcher, Ebenezer Foster, Jonathan Hadley, Samuel Keyes, Joseph Kidder, Abijah Mason, Joseph Minot, John Nutting, Thomas Nutting, John Parker, Jethro Prince, Thomas Rogers, Robert Skinner, Joseph Wright Jr., Stephen Wright. War of 1812. Joel Abbott, Walter Abbott, Oliver Fletcher, James Kemp. Civil War. Harvey N. Bailey, Wayland F. Balch, James Bicknell, Nathan D. Bicknell, George W. Blodgett, Savion B. Coburn, John W. Craig, Reuben W. Cummings, William Dane, Ansel Davis, William Dinsmore, Albert W. Fletcher, Albro Fletcher, Joel A. Fletcher, James T. Flint, Henry A. Fryer, John Harris, Francis Howard, Everett Hutchings, Thomas Hutchings, Warren Hutchins, Alfred Jackson, Franklin Jewett, John Jubb, Edward Keyes, George Lawrence, Joel Lawrence, Charles Minor, Hiram Peabody, Augustus Reed, Charles B. Reed, Luther F. Reed, John F. Richards, Alfred A. Richardson, Gardner Richardson, Patrick Sheehan, William H. Shedd, John Z. Taylor, Dexter W. Waterman,
The Spanish-American War. Alonzo A. Adams, Wayland Balch, A.J. Bicknell, Fred P. Collins, Madison A. Foster, Burton D. Griffith, Frank D. O'Brien, William Pitkin, Philip R. Prescott, George H. Whitney. World War I. Harry J. Aaron Sr., Edward M. Abbott, George Abramson, Howard Ackerley, William G. Atherton, George L. Barry, Edward J. Bechard, Walter Beebe, Henry A. Beer, Edgar C. Bebolt, Chester E. Blaisdell, Walter A. L. Blanchard, Ernest Bridgeford, Joseph Brule, W. Buckingham, John J. Burns, Daniel Kalis, J. Carpentier, Homer Chandonnet, Frank Charlton, Raymond V. Charlton, F. Colansante, Leo Connell, Harold F. Connell, Wiley Cooper, Joseph F. Costello, Thomas Costello, D. Cody, D. Corchain, Raymond J. Corchain, Henry G. Couture, Dwight W. Coles, James H. Crocker, P. Crocker, Ora D. Darling, Francis Da Silva, Robert Dexter, Ralph A. Dodge, William J. Duke, Charles Dupé, Donat Dupuis.
World War I continued. Gustav Ellison, James Elliott, Matthew Elliott, Frederick Fitzpatrick Sr., R.A. Fletcher, Manuel J. Freitas, Carl W. Furbush, Joseph Graham, R. Grant, John Gray, Arthur Greenslade, Albert Greenery, Edward T. Hanley, Herbert Hanley, Axel F. Hansen, William Harrington, William T. Hart, J. C. Heald, E. Healy, F. C. Healy, Arthur G. Hildreth, Clarence E. Hildreth, Thomas A. Hughes, Victor Jacques, James E. Jelly, H. Johnson, Francis J. Kearney, H. Kimball, Adrian Lebensfer, Paul W. Lem, Napoleon J. Langtot, Adlard Langley, Stanley Leving, Austin Lawrence, Lorenzo J. Lefbry, A. Lemry, Helen Lord, May Lord, Antonio Lozzi, L. C. Mansfield, Clarence E. McEllen, James J. McNiff, W. Mills, Emil A. Millett, Arthur Knoll, Francis Nowers, Carl H. Nylander, Margaret O'Hare, J. O'Neill, Robert Orr, Antonio Palmero, George H. Parson, F. Perkins, Joseph Perkins, Joseph J. Perkins, Joseph Perry, R. Pickering, Frederick H. Picking, Anthony Pivrato.
World War I continued. Minor W. Pomeroy, Burnham Preston, T. S. Rafferty, Alfred T. Reed, Charles Roby, Edmund Rogers, Rufus N. Rowe, Martin H. Seavey, A. Schaefer, Charles Sleeper, Edward Smith, John Spinner, Samuel Stewart, Frederick Stewart, Frank Sullivan, Paul E. Sines, F. Toussignan, Frank D. Tucker, Ephraim Vickers, Joseph G. Walker, Orion V. Wells, Harry S. Whitney, Ernest T. Wright Sr., Norman Young. World War II. World War II, Harry J. Aaron, Robert N. Abrahamson, Arthur Abud, Thomas J. Aitken, Floyd Aldrich, Thomas R. Aldrich Jr., Chester C. Allen, John A. Allison, Charles E. Amico, Carl F. Anderson, John W. Anderson Sr., Doro Antonelli, Louis Antonelli, June R. Armstrong, Edward J. Ashman, Thomas F. Assel, Alfred J. Axon, Elwyn A. Bagley, C. M. Baker, Kenneth A. Baker, Frank V. Bale, James V. Bassinas, David R. Berry, Wilbur C. Beard.
H. Bilyeu, Russell Bilyeu, Raymond A. Beauregard, Wallace Beckard, Edward Beebe, William Beebe, Paul Belita, Stephen Belinsky, Frank T. Benner Jr., George M. Bennett, Albert R. Benoit, S. J. Bernard, Rudolph J. Bernier, Stephen G. Biscotto, Ralph A. Betancourt, Edgar C. Bebel, Edward Billman, Robert Binns, Carl Blake, Peter Bobrick, Anthony Bohenko, John Bohenko, Edward J. Boisvert, Lawrence J. Boisvert, R. Boisvert, Richard Boisvert, William Boisvert, David R. Bonfiglio, Richard Bosworth, Paul H. Booton, Hubert E. Boyle, killed in action, Richard J. Bradley, Thomas J. Brady, Roger M. Breton, Ernest B. Brickett, Andrew Britko, Lawrence C. Brown, Stephen Brown, Leo J. Brule, Joseph Brule, Joseph W. Brunel, John H. Buchanan, William H. Buchanan, Virginia Burke, Joseph H. Burns, Edward L. Burns, George Butko, Robert J. Butterfield, Chester A. Calles, D. Callahan, Edward Calloway, Roland Canton, Robert J. Carlo Sr., John R. Carey, Edgar Karen, Roll Karen, Raymond Karen, Franklin R. Carr, Leslie L. Carroll Sr., William K. Carver, Rex R. Case, John J. Casey, Robert V. Cassidy, John W. Cassidy, Charles Kavanaugh, B. M. Chambers, Bryant Chaplin, Michael A. Charlton, Joseph F. Charlton, Wesley Charlton, Robert E. Karen, Joseph T. Chorney, Herbert S. Clark, John J. Cody, Leo J. Cohen, Owen S. Caldwell Sr., Charles L. Collins, Howard Collins, Earl Cannell, Edward B. Cannell, George E. Cannell, Raymond R. Cannell, Richard A. Cannell, Robert Cannell, Philip A. Cannell, Leo Connolly, Chester Cook, Douglas Cook, James A. Cosgrove, Joseph J. Costanza, Edward C. Costello, Gaston J. Coate, Hervey Coate, Marcel Coate, Norman A. Coate, Real J. Coate, Roger J. Coate, Roland J. Coate, William Coate, Kenneth P. Cottle, Donald E. Corchain, Clifford Corchain, Albert W. Cox, R. Kramer, Joseph P. Crimmins, Kenneth L. Crocker, Leonard Crocker, Morris Crocker, John J. Crowley, Eileen M. Crowley, John A. Zarnecki, Robert F. Dalton, Francis E. Daly, R. Daly, Vincent Daly, and Charles O. Daniels.
World War II continued. Thomas F. Dara, Fred Davis, Wilfred Davison, James Davy Jr., Edward N. Dean, Walter A. Dean, Russell Decado, Stephen M. D., Anthony DeFelice, A. DeForge, Stanley A. E. Deshniak, Kenneth Delay, Francis L. Delaney, Angelo Del Papa, Dominic Del Papa, Peter Denisevich, P.F. Deschamps, Clarence H. DeSalle, Maurice Delorier, Kieran Devereaux, H. DeWolf, Elizabeth L. Diamond, E. S. Dickinson, D. D. DeLeo, E. Dillman, Severio F. DiLorenzo, Alfredo J. DeSanto, John J. Doherty, Paul R. Donahue, Manfred L. Duchette, Theodore J. Duchette, Victor G. Duchette, Irving Drew, James P. Driscoll, George Dube, Frank Doobie, Joseph Ducharme, John J. Duff, Samuel Dugdale, George L. Dumont, John A. Dundas, Paul Dunnigan, Arthur J. Dupuy, William Dupuy, Frank Eastwood Sr., Charles W. Eaton, Frederick C. Eben, Angelo P. Eliopoulos, James Elliott, Joseph Elliott, Chester L. Ellis Jr., Jacob E. Ellison, Frederick Ellison, Richard S. Emmett, Charles G. Avaska, Donald F. Farrell, John J. Ferrier, Charles N. Follier Jr.
World War II continued. A. Fecto, Richard S. Farrell, Elroy A. Field, Bruce A. Fitter, Edward J. Finn, Joseph A. Finn, Waco R. Fanilla, John F. Fitzpatrick, Frederick Fitzpatrick Jr., Frederick S. Flannery, Harold A. Fletcher Sr., Joseph W. Fletcher, killed in action, Rowland Fletcher, Willard J. Fletcher, Walter Fletcher Jr., Arthur Flynn, John C. Forbes, Roger J. Forrest, Luke E. Fortin, Margaret A. Fortune, Albert Forty, Archer Forty, L. Frame, Russell Frazier, Y. Freeman, Manuel J. Freitas, Robert H. Fuller, Michael J. Fulton, Alfred Gagnon, Donald G. Gagnon, Francis Gagnon, Joseph A. Galladier, Glenn D. Garlow, Fernand Jelinas, David George, J. German, Daniel G. Gervais, John Gill, Roger R. Godfrey, R. R. Godroy, William E. Goodwin, Donald G. Gower, Roger W. Gower, William R. Gower, killed in action, Ronald A. Grant, John J. Green, Donald Grigg, Armand Grenier, Alberic Grenier, Thomas S. Groom, Carl W. Grunstrom, Ralph Haberman, George R. Haley, Donald Hall, John A. Hall, Hallberg, Gwenfred Hammer, Ralph Hamilton, D. N. Hansen, R. A. Hansen, Axel F. Hansen, Edna M. Hansen, Rainey M. Hansen, Richard E. Hansen, Robert Hansen, Matthew J. Harding, James E. Harrigan, Daniel Hartley, Louis Harshill, Edward L. Hayes, William Hayes, Floyd Haywood, Elmer L. Held, Frederick S. Healy, killed in action, James L. Healy, Sr., John A. Healy, Jr., William R. Healy, Clifford Hegis, Robert W. Hill, Ralph E. Hickley, Richard J. Hirschler, James J. Hobson, John Holmes, Thomas E. Holmes, Bert Holt, Gaillard L. Holt, Eric Hook, Betty R. Hook.
World War II continued. Harold H. Hoover, Charles W. Hopkins, William L. Hopkins, Charles C. Howe, Thomas A. Hughes, Jr., Winifred Hulsander, James G. Hunter, James Hutter, Alvin L. James, John Jedry, Frank A. Geray, Herbert M. Johnson, Clifford Johnson, David D. Johnson, Gordon R. Jones, Richard E. Jordan, Bronislaw J. Kersowich, John Calisavan, Al Kane, Lawrence Kane, Calegro Cansava, John Kavanaugh, Frank Carcotta, Herbert R. Kaziniak, Joseph P. Kelly, Edward J. Kelly, Joseph Kelly, Leo Kelly, Richard M. Kenyon, R. Kaiser, Newell J. Kimball, Frank A. King, Arthur J. Kinney, Willard P. Kester, Michael J. Kolesniak, Anthony Costeco, killed in action, Andrew Costeco, George Kovalchek, Bernard Kulish, killed in action, Hervé Labby, Adrien Laboissonnefer, Thomas Lafianitis, Albert J. Lafreniere, Francis J. Lafontaine, Arthur Lammy Jr., Edward M. Lamson, Weatherby Lamson, Roland J. Lammy, Treffel J. Lammy, C. Lammy, Philip Lammy, Henry J. Lammy Jr., Wallace Langell, Leo A. Langley, Russell G. Langley, James M. Langford, Paul L. Langtang, Raymond D. Lappin, Gerald J. Lapointe, P. Latianatus, William Levasseur, Francis J. Levine, Leroy E. Leach, Alexander J. LaCour, Emile J. Leduc, killed in action, Robert Leduc, Chester A. Liedberg, Robert L. Lagasse, John E. Leggett, Raymond A. Levasseur, Blanche Lukowitz, James Lukowitz Jr., Helen Lord, May Lord, John Lord, Philip D. Lord, Corwin Loxlaw, Lucas Luhank, John M. Lututi, J. Charles Maybe, George McDonald, Alistair McDougall Jr., William C. McMillan, J. McMillan, Ian McPherson, J. J. Madigan.
World War II continued. Francis McGee, Robert Mayle, Stephen A. Makos, Robert A. Malley, Michael C. Mancini, William J. Mantville, Faye Martin, Julian Martin, Lionel P. Martin Sr., Herbert E. Martin, Howard G. Masser, Maurice F. Masson, F. May, Thomas May, Peter Mazzoka, Anthony Mazzola, Francis McLeod, Thomas M. McHugh, John P. McDermott, Patrick J. McEnany, Richard McGlinchey, Alan C. McIntosh, Thomas J. McNiff, John T. McNiff, Jr., Winifred C. McNiff, William F. McLaughlin, James F. McLeod, Francis C. McNeil, Edward McNiff, Henry J. Menard, Roger J. Menard, Raoul J. Menard, Walker H. Merritt, Jr., Otis L. Metcalf, Albert R. McNoll, E. E. Myler, Edward J. Maluski, William Mullane, Charles F. Miller, William A. Millett, Henry Millot, Ferdinand Milo, Renaud J. Minot, L. Milo, Lucien Milo, Michael Minko, Raymond H. Moan, J. H. Mongan, Charles E. Moore, Herv Moore, Nelson H. Morgan, P. Mortimer, Edward P. Mountain, Walter Mountain, J. H. Mullen Sr., Francis J. Mulligan, J. J. Mulroney, C. Munt.
World War II continued. Joseph Nadolny, Victor Cheerio F. Neal Sr., Elf A. Nielsen, George L. Nesmith, Norman K. Nesmith, E. Neville, Anthony J. Nemesic, Harry Nixon, Joseph A. Noel, Uno A. Norgol, Walter Nider, John J. O'Connell, William J. O'Connell, Francis J. O'Connor, Kenneth J. O'Connor, Robert J. O'Malley, James Oliver, Roy Olson, Arthur Olson, Richard O'Neill, Robert J. Orr, J. Osborne, Salvatore A. Paduano, Henry Payne, David L. Pallion, Salvatore L. Palmer, Leon Palmer, Roger Palmer, Antonio Panetton, Roland Panetton, Roger Parent Sr., Walter E. Parfit, Arthur B. Parker, Roland M. Parker, Royce Palmenter, Peter J. Palladо, Laval V. Peliquin, J. Pelosi, Roland F. Pendlebury, Arthur T. Perkins, killed in action, John J. Perkins, Joseph W. Perkins, Frank Perkins, Robert B. Perkins, Felix Perrault, Wendell Perry, Edmund S. Pastana, Edgar Peterson, Warren L. Phillips, Joseph Peache, Arthur Parmelo, Leo Parmelo, Michael J. Papalizio, Vincent Papalizio, Solomon Portillo, Thomas Preston, Raymond L. Prudhomme, Eugene J. Queenan, Frederick R. Radcliffe, Thomas S. Rafferty, Howard D. Reed, F. Reedy, Wayne L. Reinhardt, Anita M. Ricard, Cyril L. Ricard, Carl S. Riccardi. Eugene Rue, killed in action. F. Rizzitano. A. E. Roby. Robert H. Picking. John S. Pickwell, Jr. George O. Pierce. William W. Pigeot.
World War II continued. Donald F. Robinson, William A. Roderick, W. Roderick, Charles Roscoe, Franklin T. Rose, August P. Ross, N. A. Rue, R. Roy, Robert P. Roy, Sr., Otis Rutland, Mary M. Saris, James V. Ryan, Peter Sawasik, Milton Skarmies, Joseph J. Scudo, Stephen J. Sullivan Sr., Gordon B. Seavey, George Sekovich, John Sadach, Peter Sadach, Stephen Sadach, George S. Seddon, Phyllis B. Seddon, Earl B. Selfridge, R. E. Shamp, Walter E. Shaw, D. Shaw, Norman Shaw, Daniel D. Shea, Walter Sherman, John G. Shine, John Shugrid, Richard F. Skehan, Avery L. Smith, Harry V. Smith, Margaret Smith, Joseph H. Smith, Jr., Robert L. Suboski, Henry J. Spadano, Richard L. Stacy, Chelsea A. Steele, Sr., Sterling, William Stevenson, Jr., Maurice St. Hilaire, Edward St. Onge, Alexander Stromsky, S. Strumsky, Edward Stewart, William O. Stumpf, Anthony J. Succo, Nicholas Sudak, Leo F. Supple, Alfred A. Sutherland, Stanley Sedelis, Herbert P. Swanson, Vernon Swanson, William T. Sweetman, Magnus Swensley, Edmund Sylvian, Francis J. Sylvian, Vidal J. Sylvian, Espitasio Taxon.
World War II continued. Theodore Targ, Edward B. Teague, Leo E. Therian, Roland Therian, James F. Thibault, Charles Thompson, William Tim, Robert J. Topshian, Wilfred Toussaint, Joseph Town Jr., Herbert Tremble, Joseph F. Ewer, John Urbaniak, Henry Vadabencourt, Paul Valcourt, Paul E. Valcourt, John T. Vallone. Francis J. Van Beaver, Wilbur L. Vaughn, Frank Ventola, Nicholas Vorape, Albert V. Wainwright, Jr., James J. Walker, Edward S. Warcole, Edwin J. Weber, Robert M. Welsh, Sr., Elizabeth Wells, James Whalen, Gordon Whitney, Ivan Whitney, Stanley G. Whitney, Bernard M. Wilder, James Wilson, Alec F. Wojtowicz, Florian Wojtowicz, Andrew Walkowicz, Walter Wakowicz, Lawrence L. Woods, Clark Woodward, Michael Wozniak, Charles Wright Jr., Alfred C. Wyman, Gilbert W. Wyman, Shirley C. Wyman, Horace Wyman, Waldo Yarnell, John F. Young, John S. Young, Nicholas P. Zahere, Raymond Ziss, Raymond Zitta, Paul Zuver, Homer A. Zwicker. That concludes World War II. The Korean War. Robert W. Allen, John W. Anderson, Joseph T. Antonelli Jr., Richard Araj, Joseph A. Aruda, Joseph R. Aslan, Robert T. Ayer Jr., Helen J. Bankhead, Richard J. Barrett Sr., Stephen J. Belinsky, Walter A. Barrow, Anthony F. Baroth, John L. Black, killed in action, William Blott, Saul M. Bujarski, Joseph D. Boudreau, Gerald A. Bork, Robert F. Bradley Sr., R. Brenton, Eugene H. Brooks, Joseph P. Brown, Joseph R. Brule, Raymond J. Brule, Thomas E. Burns Jr., Roger Karkin, Stanley A. Carroll, Eugene Carter, William J. Carey Jr., Joseph W. Cassidy, Joseph E. Champney, William B. Coakley, Russell N. Cobley, Clarence R. Cannell, William D. Cannell, Dennis E. Cushane, Robert W. Coughlin, James A. Curley, John J. Daly, Albert J. Danielle, Richard A. Devon, David S. Day, Robert N. Diet, George L. Dumont, Gordon G. Dunn, Joseph W. Durow, Joseph E. Elliott, Theodore W. Engel, Robert R. Fitzpatrick, R. Fletcher, John J. Foley, Paul E. Fredette, Ernest Gagnon, Kenneth A. Grimm, Albert F. Griffin, Robert J. Grippo, T. S. Groschmal, George R. Haley.
Korean War continued. Philip Hall, Ernest D. Hansen, Paul F. Heron, B. T. Hart, Francis P. Hart, John Hartley, Floyd Hayward Jr., Conrad Heroux, Robert Hicks, Robert K. Hillman, Bernard G. Holmes, Robert A. Holmes, William J. Holmes, William J. Hubbard, Ernest F. Jenkins, Douglas J. Johnston, Daniel L. Joyce, John J. Kavanagh, Wayne R. Keith, Marjorie E. Kester, Leonard L. Kulikowski, John Pete LaFond, Claude Lamy, Robert J. Langley, killed in action, R. F. Lavoie, Arthur T. Lawrence, Walter C. Lawrence, W. F. Leach, Alexander J. LaCourte, Robert P. Lefebvre, Roger B. Lefebvre, James Lahan, Richard P. Lennox, Paul G. Levasseur, James B. McDonald, Roderick L. McClellan Sr., Kenneth A. McMillan, Frederick F. Magdalensky, Robert C. Mayo, Theodore S. Majewski, Richard Marson.
Korean War continues. Harry May, Donald McGaffrey, Paul J. McGinney, Edward McNiff, Henry J. Millett, Joseph A. Mallow, L. J. Mallow, Paul T. Mallow, Raymond Mallow, Richard Mallow, Thomas A. O'Laughlin Jr., Ralph J. Osana, Frank Page, Lloyd C. Pease, D. Phillips, Donald B. Pick, Herbert Pitts, Wilmer Popsher, Frederick L. Pond, Herbert Provost, Frederick A. Raymond, Herbert J. Raymond, Bernard J. Ricard, George H. Ricard, Richard J. Womack, Alan R. Rose, Joseph A. Rosello, Mary M. Saris, Norman R. St. Ange, Ronald G. Sandholm, John A. Santos, Ralph J. Sena, Walter A. Shaw, Lawrence I. Shea, Patrick J. Sheridan, John T. Smith, Paul G. Smith, William E. Smith, Frederick S. Sudak, Donald R. St. Ange, John N. Timanicus, George Tattleman, James F. Thompson, William S. Trask, Kenneth J. Valcourt, Bernard C. Victory, Edwin Whitney, Robert W. Willis, Maurice J. Wynn, Norance L. Woods, Ronald M. Wozniak, Ernest T. Wright, Jr.
Vietnam War. Charles E. Aaron, killed in action. Donald A. Alcorn Sr., Gerard J. Arciero, Theodore J. Barrett, William M. Barry, Jerry G. Berkowitz, P. E. Boudreau, Leo Bowes, Dennis G. Boyd, Robert J. Brazil, Richard Brown, Richard E. Brundrett Jr., killed in action. William M. Bryant, Henry F. Cahill, John E. Carolyn, Chester A. Clark, Philip J. Collins, Stephen T. Collins, William E. Collins, Paul J. Conlon, Raymond A. Cannell, Richard Connolly, killed in action. Dennis E. Cushane, Barry Craig, David J. Cunha, Max V. Curtis, Harlan W. Daigneault, David S. Day, Michael Dean, George R. D., Bruce A. Dillon, A. W. Dobieski, James F. Donahoe, Jr., John Jack D. Doucette, John J. Drobo, William F. Duggan, George L. Dumont, David P. Ebert, Magnus J. Einerson, Chester L. Ellis, Jr., William Ewers, Robert J. Farron, John J. Gagnon, Alfred J. Garside, Eulogio U. Gallardo, Robert F. Gillette, Richard J. Gingras, Norman J. Godfroy, Theodore V. Godfroy, David B. Grand, James M. Greco, Joseph A. Guthrie, Jr., Stephen J. Halloran, Charles R. Harvey, Albert C. Hergert, Anita A. Hook, Bruce M. Hughes, Sr., Kenneth R. Hughes, killed in action, Richard M. Ingmanson, Ernest E. Jenkins, Richard E. Jordan, Thomas F. Joyce, Robert Kelios.
Vietnam continued. Edward J. Kazwara, Paul W. LaChance, Paul J. Lammy, Bruce I. Lambert, Charles J. Landry Sr., Paul J. Lantang, George I. Lawrencell, Henry E. LeDuc, Roger L. Lundergan, John J. Mack Jr., Richard Mahana, Michael J. McConnell, Edward McKenna, James B. McKenna, Harold L. Latchy, Donald R. Menifee, Michael F. O'Connor, John J. O'Connell Jr., William T. O'Donnell, Norman Olson, Robert J. O'Malley, Robert Panetton, William G. Hoist, Lionel Peliquin, George E. Reeves, Harold Richards Jr., Charles Rogers, Mary M. Saris, Peter D. St. Onge, Douglas Sunberg, Armand Supernot, Paul M. Sylvia, William H. Thompson, William J. Toohey Jr., Brian L. Vaughn, John Wagner, Gerald W. Walsh, John W. Walsh, William H. Ward, Alan M. Wells, Floyd P. Wood, John E. Roble, Brian S. Wyman. Persian Gulf War, Douglas A. Diet, Jesse P. LeDrew, Daniel F. Provost. Mideast conflict, Derek M. Halverson, Rick E. Hersey. That concludes the reading of this year's honor roll. For as long as they are remembered. They shall never be forgotten. As a reminder that shortly, for 15 minutes, the parade will start from the Rodenbush Community Center, make its way up Main Street, stops at the fire department, the monuments, continue around to the Common, where speeches will be made and the rest of the ceremony will take place. Again, as Carol said, thank you very much for attending the reading of this honor roll.
At this time, would please everybody stand. We're going to have for the Pledge of Allegiance. Attachment, present arms. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty for justice for all. Order. Holmes. I'll come back up.
Uncover. Let us pray. Almighty God, giver of all victories, we thank Thee for the opportunities which abide in our land, for the guidance in the hour of peril, and the tender love in times of need. Help us to remember the reverence, the value, devotion, in our departed comrades, not only those whose body consecrate our country's soil, but those who sleep beyond the seas, and those others whose resting place will not be given until dead. Keep us forever firm in righteousness. Amen. Cover.
You may be seated. Well, good morning. I know there's some tired soldiers, sailors, and airmen and such out there. This is our fourth parade this morning. We started at 8:30, 8:45. Thank God it's 20 degrees cooler than yesterday. I'd like to welcome you all to our Westford Memorial Day service. At this time, the Boy Scout Troop 437 would like to honor our flag by providing a ceremonial service in recognition of the United States of America's flag. Richard Davis will be the spokesman for the Troop 437.
We are gathered here today to remember and honor those who have died in active military service, to remember those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. We honor them now by paying proper respect to our national symbol, the American flag, Old Glory, for which they fought. It has been decreed that on Memorial Day, the last Monday in May, the flag is to be flown at half-staff from sunrise until noon. At noon, it is to be returned to its full height. For today, the day before Memorial Day, the flag flies proudly at the top of the pole. At this time, we will now conduct a flag replacement ceremony, including the proper folding of the American flag according to the United States Flag Code. Would the flag team please come forward? The audience may now be seated. Flag team, please present the colors. The U.S. flag has gone with our military all over the world, not only serving as a symbol for our great nation, but as a symbol of freedom, liberty, and justice. Folding the flag with honor is a tradition that reminds us of the power and importance of this symbol. Half fold. Quarter fold. The quarter fold brings the stars representing the 50 great states of our Union back into view. Next, we will fold the flag into a triangle. This treatment is reserved solely for Old Glory. With each fold, we honor those who have come before us and fought for our nation. First fold. To honor the 13 original colonies and our forefathers who founded this great nation, we salute you. Second fold. To the men who died in the War for Independence, we salute you. Third fold. To those men who fell in the War of 1812 to preserve our freedom, we salute you. Fourth fold. To the brave soldiers on both sides, the North and the South, in the Civil War, we salute you. Fifth fold. To those who shed their blood in the name of hope and freedom in the Great War, we salute you. Sixth fold. To our fathers and sons who died in the terrible battles of World War II, Pearl Harbor, Anzio, Midway, the Bulge, Iwo Jima, Guadalcanal, Normandy, and Berlin, we salute you. Seventh fold. To the men of the 1st Marine Division who, in a rearguard action at the Chosin Reservoir in Korea, saved their battalion and the lives of their brother Marines, we salute you. Eighth fold. To the brave men and women of our armed forces who died on the fields of fire in Vietnam and whose names will live on forever on that hallowed wall, we salute you. Ninth fold. To our Commander-in-Chief, who leads our nation in good times and bad, we salute you. Tenfold. To our teachers, police, firemen, and civil servants whose dedication makes this country strong, we salute you. 11fold. To God, our parents, and our families, whom we love and respect, we salute you. 12fold. To the men and women of our armed forces, the arsenal of democracy, and the hammer of freedom, we salute you. 13fold. And last, to freedom, because without freedom, there is no honor. Without honor, we are not Americans. And on this we vow, that as long as this flag flies, we salute you. After the flag is completely folded and tucked in, it takes on the appearance of a cocked hat, ever reminding us of the soldiers who served under General George Washington and the sailors and Marines who served under Captain John Paul Jones, who were the first to fight under the flag of the United States, procuring for us the rights, privileges, and freedoms we enjoy today. Flag team, please raise the new flag. I return the podium to you, Mr. Stater.
Thank you, Richard, and members of Troop 437. It's nice to have that program added to our service. Again, thank you. Everybody may stand at ease, and we'll begin the next phase of the service. Again, thank you all for attending. Our honored guests, veterans, police, fire, Westford Pipes and Drums, the Westford Academy Band, who's followed us around town as well. I'm sure they will dream taps tonight. Especially to our volunteers also that helped in putting this program together. Thank you very much. This is the 150th anniversary of Memorial Day as we know it today. Their tradition had its roots several years after the Civil War. One instance is recorded in 1866 in Columbus, Mississippi, where the women of fallen soldiers, the Confederate soldiers, soldiers, the women decided to decorate their husbands with flowers. They also noticed that it was appropriate to decorate the Union soldiers as well. This day was originally called Decoration Day. Several years later, throughout the country, it was moved to May 30th, because it believed at that time that that's when flowers would be available throughout the country, in all portions of the country, that they could be laid on their soldiers' graves. It was not till after World War I that the day was expanded to honor those who died in all American wars. In 1971, the Memorial Day was declared a national holiday by Congress, and it's still called Decoration Day in certain parts of the country. It was also then placed on the last Monday in May. In the past several weeks, many of the volunteers here in town, as well as our service organizations, have decorated the grave sites of our veterans that have been laid to rest in our cemeteries with U.S. flags. This morning, volunteers read the names of over 1,500 Westford residents who have served in our armed forces during the war. As I walked through the cemetery with our volunteers, looking for these markers, to look at the names on the headstones, I was awed by the breadth of all the names. It's a history lesson in itself. going through our cemeteries and looking at who is buried here. Many of our service members came back to Westford after serving their country and then served their community. And I think about this, that these are the service members or veterans that have laid the foundation for the community that we have today. When I hear about all the number of awards our school system gets and our town gets, I think these volunteers in our community have made the foundation for what we are today here in Westford. Thank you. Memorial Day is the day we set aside to honor the veterans and praise them for their contribution to our country and community. And to those, we should give thanks, not just on Memorial Day, but every day. So, just real quick, I took a look at the last almost 40 names that were added to the list over the last 2 years. And I'm going to read off a few of them. Joyce, Valone, Zita, Kavanaugh, Stafford, Wozniak, Popolizio, Lozensky, Grimm, Ricard, Ducharme, Magdalensky, Arling, Rorbel, Smith, Herget, Gerside, Ayers, Wyman, Quattrini, Sampson, Andrews, Willis, Hanson, Halverson, Damascus, Ledoux, Brazil, Gagnon, Hersey, Hurl, Toohey, LaFountain, Lyson, Fline, Manning, and Bennett. All contributors in some way to our community. Again, we salute you not only today, but every day. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Senator Eileen Donahue, representing First Middlesex.
Thank you, and good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me here again this year. I truly am humbled to have the opportunity to express my gratitude for our country's fallen servicemen and women. I also would like to acknowledge and thank members of our armed services and our veterans, and to the families of those of the armed services and veterans who serve and the fallen who we remember today. Thomas Jefferson once said, "The price of freedom is eternal vigilance." Those words are as true today as they were when Thomas Jefferson uttered them. Freedom is something that we must be vigilant to protect, to guarantee, to assure that our great nation continues to enjoy the freedoms and the liberty that so many have fought so hard for. Now this weekend, citizens across the Commonwealth are gathering to commemorate Memorial Day. Many, as those here today, are commemorating it for the right reason, to remember those who gave their lives. For many, it's the kickoff to summertime, to celebrate baseball, barbecues, family gatherings. And all those pastimes are enjoyable. It is always incumbent upon us to remember why we are remembering Memorial Day, to remember those who dedicated their lives so that we may have the freedoms we enjoy today. When I was preparing remarks, I came across, and I was thinking about heroism and heroes, because the hundreds of thousands who have laid down their lives for us over the course of this great nation are truly heroes, each and every one of them. And I came across a quote by Arthur Ashe. Now, many of us know Arthur Ashe to be a great athlete, African-American tennis player, world class. But some of us may not know that he is also a humanitarian, an educator, and he had this to say about heroism. True heroism is remarkably sober, very undramatic. It is not the urge to surpass all others at whatever cost, but the urge to serve others at whatever cost. And when you think about that in context to our brave men and women who have served our country throughout its history, it truly is remarkable. Ask yourself, are you willing to serve at whatever cost, including giving your life? And so when you think about it in that term, it is sobering. to realize how many people have answered that call, have put others, most people they don't even know, ahead of themselves in their own interest. It truly is a trait that has set America apart, because men and women throughout the history have done just that and have been willing to answer that truthfully, to say, yes, I'm willing to serve others and including giving my own life. It's unbelievable. And yet, today, we have men and women fighting in other places around the globe to make sure that we continue to enjoy the freedoms that were guaranteed by us because of that sacrifice by so many. We're reminded today that the people we honor, the brave men and women, not only by remembering them, but by carrying on the values they fought for. Our soldiers who made that ultimate sacrifice to preserve the ideals that define our nation, among them freedom, justice, liberty, and equality. And as we remember and honor these men and women that we have lost, we must remember that we still have men and women still serving, still fighting, and continuing to put their lives on the line for us every day. We owe a lasting tribute to these courageous men and women who stepped forward when their country called. With these cherished memories, we will not forget those we have lost, as long as we hold them dear and they remain in our hearts forever. You know, it was once said, if a loved one who has gone on is in your heart, they never die. And so it's incumbent upon us today and every day to hold dear and remember those who gave their lives for us. And in that sense, they live on today. I'll close with these words from an American poet, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And he wrote, "Your silent tents of green we deck with fragrant flowers. Yours has the suffering been, the memory shall be ours." Again, it is truly an honor to be here. I am grateful to all those who serve our country, to their families, and to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. At this time, I'd like to invite Representative Jim Arciero, representing the 2nd Middlesex District.
Thank you. Senator Donahue, members of the Westford Board of Selectmen, Terry Stater, our Westford Veteran Service Officer, honorable veterans, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Memorial Day is one of our nation's most solemn, revered holidays, born solely of our shared American heritage. Together, we recall the glory and sacrifice of all who have set their personal aspirations aside for the preservation of our nation. We pause to remember the true cost of freedom and to honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice to preserve and protect it. The brave men and women we honor today, fathers, brothers, sons, mothers, sisters, and daughters, made the ultimate sacrifice so we could live in our great nation free of fear and oppression. Americans spend Memorial Day gathered with family and friends, ushering in the beginning of summer with picnics and parties. But it's important that we remember why we gather on this special day. Today, we come together to pray, to reflect, and remember these special Americans. A day when we honor the brave men and women who gave of themselves to ensure that we continue to live and grow and prosper in our great nation. Today we pay tribute to all those who have forged our history and hold close the memory of those most recently lost. And even as we gather here in Westford, across the Commonwealth, and across our great nation, citizens are pausing to remember, to mourn, and to pray, to pay silent and public tribute to our sisters and brothers who have sacrificed everything to preserve our freedom and the American way of life. Today, veterans from the greatest generation to the 9/11 generation pause to remember those lost to war. Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are placing wreaths and American flags on the graves of American heroes in cemeteries here in Westford and across our great nation. Gold Star families look at old pictures, vacations, first communions, and graduations of their loved ones who left this world far too young. But for those families who have lost a loved one, this sad chapter in their lives will remain long after the guns of battle have fallen silent. My uncle, Walter Bartow, was laid to rest last week in Middletown, New Jersey. He was a member of America's Greatest Generation, a man who, in 1944, at the age of 17, enlisted in the United States Navy. As the family story goes, my uncle needed his mother's signature on his enlistment papers in order for him to join the Navy at such a young age. At first, fearing the risks of war, his mother refused to sign the consent form. My uncle pleaded with his mother to allow him to serve his country, to stand up and fight for the ideals of America, to sacrifice, like thousands of other Americans, to ensure that the United States would fight fascism and tyranny, and that our great nation would not perish from this earth. My uncle's lobbying was convincing. He told his mother that if she didn't sign the consent form, he would run away, change his name, and figure out a way to serve his country. In addition, he told her in no uncertain terms that she would never see him again. Well, his mother signed it. My uncle Walter served in the USS Cowpen, an aircraft carrier, which is the first U.S. Navy vessel in Tokyo Harbor at the conclusion of World War II. This is but one man's story of service to our nation. Uncle Walter, may you rest in peace. And while the nature of war has changed over time, the values that drive our brave men and women in uniform remain constant. Honor, courage, bravery, and selflessness. The values they held so preciously in their souls. Behind every military flag on every military grave lies a soldier, a parent, or a child, or a family who has lost a cherished loved one. Every flag is an individual story of sacrifice and a witness to the love they felt for the United States. For the lasting sacrifices that our fallen soldiers have given us, we have the responsibility to give back to this nation something lasting in their memory by affirming in our own lives and by advancing in the world those American ideals of justice, equality, and freedom. America leads so that people here and around the globe will know a more hopeful and a better life on this earth. We owe it to the heroes that died and the loved ones left behind to make sure that their sacrifices were not made in vain and that their service to this grateful nation will always be honored. It is a debt we can never fully repay, but it is our obligation to never stop trying to do so by living our own lives the way the fallen lived theirs, by striving to match the sacrifices they made in order that we may live freely, and by emulating what our patriots stood for, to honor and support the families they left behind, and to always affirm that their sacrifices were never made in vain. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our veterans, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Kelly Ross, Chairman of the Westford Board of Selectmen.
First, I want to thank Terry Stater for organizing this event and for everything he does for our veterans. And I want to thank all of you for attending here today. I also want to thank David Christiana for volunteering his time and talent to create a monument to Westford's Minutemen that will be placed at Minot's Corner. In a few moments, we will witness the unveiling of a piece of that monument, a bronze replica of a Revolutionary War-era drum. So on this Memorial Day, it seems appropriate to remember the vision, courage, and sacrifice of the Minutemen who marched to the beat of that drum. In 1883, Westford historian Reverend Edwin R. Hodgman wrote this about the Westford Minutemen. Promptly did these men obey the call to defend their country, and bravely did they meet the shock of arms. The patriotism of the town did not falter during that long and bloody contest that ensued, but her citizens and her soldiers were true to the American flag, even to the end. Reverend Hodgman's words ring true today, and on this Memorial Day, let us remember and honor the patriotism and bravery of Westford's Minutemen. It is fitting that this monument will be placed at Minot's Corner. Captain Jonathan Minot, for whom Minot's Corner is named, is one of the many Westford residents who fought for American independence. His son, Joseph Minot, was killed in the Battle of Bunker Hill. On this Memorial Day, let us remember the spirit and sacrifice of all who fought for independence. Today we meet on our town common in the same place where Westford's Minutemen trained centuries ago as they prepared to fight. They fought to preserve freedom and to defend their beliefs in what was right. The spirit of those brave men endures in this country today. On this Memorial Day, let us remember the Minutemen and the many patriots and the generations that followed who marched to the beat of the drum. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Ross. At this time, as we just heard about the Minute Battle Memorial Drum, I'd like to invite David Christiana to the podium, who will speak on behalf of the unveiling. David is an artist as well as a Westford firefighter.
I can guarantee you that I will not be as eloquent as these wonderful speakers today. But I speak on behalf of my family, my grandfather, my dad, my uncles, my brothers, my sister, my nieces and nephews. My Uncle Richard, who was killed in action in Vietnam as a combat medic. I speak on behalf of my cousin, Kevin, Iraqi war veteran who died in line of duty as a police officer. So when I say it's truly an honor to stand here today, it comes from the heart. I grew up in a military family, so I know what this is all about. It's not only an honor to stand here today in front of so many incredible men and women who put their community, their state, and their country before their own selves in order to protect not only our lives, but our rights, our freedoms, and our liberty by serving in the United States military. It is also very humbling to me to be given the opportunity to help honor our veterans and our citizens who gave so much in their service to the community and nation. The ones we are about to honor are the ones who helped forge this nation. Without them, we may not have had a constitution or a country to defend. These were everyday people, residents of Westford, who trained to protect this community from tyranny, to fight for our freedom and our liberty, and they trained right here on this very spot that we are standing. All New England communities can say their men fought in the war for independence, but most can't say they were in the front lines of what is considered to be the first and very historic battle of the American Revolution. In the early morning hours of April 19th, 1775, Lieutenant Colonel John Robinson, second in command of the Northern Middlesex County Regiment of Minute and Militia Companies, under Colonel Prescott of Pepperell, was alerted at his home in Westford by a lone rider. He was alerted of British regulars marching towards Concord with the intent of doing a community search and seizure of town residents in order to take away any weapons and ordnance residents may have had for self-protection. Robinson immediately had Westford Minute and Militia Companies organized and marched to Concord. Robinson then mounted his horse, took several Westford Minutemen with him, and rode to Concord to assist. He arrived in Concord just in time to be a part of one of the most historic battles of the war. I'm going to read to you a letter that we just happen to have by one of our Westford Minutemen, Reverend Joseph Thaxter, of his account of what happened. He was a Minuteman that actually was on the bridge with Colonel Robinson fighting the battle with the British. And I'll let him say in his own words what happened. And I quote, "I think it is a great neglect that so little notice is taken of Concord Bridge and the men who first faced the British troops. Much is said of Lexington. The British met no opposition there. I was an eyewitness to the following facts. The people of Westford, Acton, and some few of Concord were the first who faced the British at Concord Bridge. The British had placed about 90 men as a guard at the North Bridge. We had then no certain information that any had been killed at Lexington. We saw the British making destruction in the town of Concord. It was proposed to advance to the bridge. On this, Colonel Robinson of Westford, together with Major Buttrick of Concord, took the lead. Strict orders were given not to fire unless the British fired first. When they advanced about halfway on the causeway, the British fired one gun, a second, a third, and then the whole body. They killed Colonel Davis of Acton and a Mr. Hosmer. Our people then fired over one another's heads, being in a long column, 2 by 2. They killed 2 and wounded 11. On this, the British fled and assembled on the hill, the north side, of Concord, and dressed their wounded, and then began their retreat. As they descended the hill near the road that comes out of Bedford, they were pursued. We pursued them and killed some. When they got to Lexington, they were so close pursued and fatigued that they must have soon surrendered, had not Lord Percy met them with a large reinforcement and 2 field pieces. They fired them, but the cannonballs went high over our heads. We pursued to Charlestown Common and then retired to Cambridge. When the army collected at Cambridge, Colonel Prescott and his regiment of Minutemen and Lieutenant Colonel Robinson, his lieutenant colonel, were prompted at being at their post. A decent monument at Concord Bridge, where the first spark was struck, and quite as glorious as Breed's Hill, considering the circumstances, would be doing no more honor to Robinson and Buttrick than they richly deserve. I have lived in obscurity on this island and never thought of myself of importance enough and capable of doing justice to a historical account of the transactions of the memorable 19th of April 1775. Many anecdotes of those days that would do honor to individuals, it is most probable will be forgotten. I am, sir, with respect yours, Joseph Thaxter. This 100-pound bronze memorial battle drum that we're going to unveil today is dedicated to those brave men from Middlesex County who fought in that first historic battle at the North Bridge in Concord on April 19, 1775. It was sculpted to represent the battle drums used by our own minute and militia companies during the battle, and is meant to show age in use. It is only a small part of a much larger memorial yet to be built here in Westford, and will be placed at the base and in front of a 10-foot tall Minuteman statue, which will honor all 289 Westford men who fought in the American Revolution, and will be dedicated to the 35 who were killed in that war. I want to thank the Westford Remembers Memorial Fund, who paid for this. I'd also like to thank Dan LaCroix of the Historic Society and also one of the Westford Minutemen. I'd like to thank the Westford Minutemen for being here today, and a special thanks to the Sons of the American Revolution, who gave not only their support, but their permission to use their most revered memorial marker that you see on a lot of the headstones of our Revolutionary War soldiers throughout the country. So with that said, I would like to invite Selectman Scott Hazelton to unveil the drum.
Great. Thank you very much, Dave. Look forward to seeing that drum close up. David does excellent work. As you know, it did our 9/11 monument in the center as well. As we bring this service to a close, I'd like to again thank all the participants who helped us recognize our deceased veterans. At this time, as we close out, the Westford Academy Band will do National Anthem, followed by our Westford Fire Department pipes and drum. At that time, the service will then will close. We'd like to invite all the participants, all the veterans, to American Legion Post 159 at 2 Cross Street for a luncheon after the service. Westford Academy Band, go ahead. All rise, please.